Hello guys, welcome back to our front-end masterclass. Last week we covered CSS Grid fundamentals and I promised you two hands-on projects, right? Today we are building a responsive photo gallery using CSS Grid. This project will teach you how to create real-world layouts that automatically adapt to different screen sizes. We will cover grid containers, responsive columns, the masonry effect, and proper image handling. By the end, you will have a professional looking gallery that works perfectly on desktop, tablet, and mobile. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So as you can see, oh sorry, my battery is kind of low, but that's not a problem. As you can see, I have this folder here, gallery grid, right? With an image folder with an image of 0 to 9, and I also have two files, which is regular index and CSS files. So HTML and CSS. Okay. So notice today I've already written the HTML. I don't want the video to be long, so I just want us to focus on CSS Grid, right? I suppose you already know how to write your HTML. So maybe I will send you the starter file containing the HTML code. Okay, so you to just jump into CSS, right? Okay, so let us review our HTML code and see first. So as you can see, we have we have all of this thing gallery wrapped in a main element, right? We have a header here first with h1 element which reads my photo gallery, and then a paragraph with built with CSS grid, right? And down below it we have our main class, so the container for all the images, so the gallery, right? So as you can see, we have different gallery items, right? As you can see, each and every gallery item has a class of gallery item and then its own specific class, item 1, right? So it also have this image overlay, right? So this image overlay here, okay? We also have image description. As you can see, all the items are like that, right? So if you create one, you can just copy and paste the others down and change the stuff. Okay, so overall we have 8 items, as you can see. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's get started into our CSS. Okay, notice the images here are too small, and that's because I added this in our CSS. I selected all the images and added width of 200 pixels for you to see for now. Okay, but let me remove it. Okay, now let's start our actual CSS. Now let me reset the div browser styles to ensure consistency across different browsers first. Okay, so we need to remove the margin, zero the padding also, and then set the box sizing to border box, right? So here, as you already know, the universal selector, it targets every element, right? And then we zero the margin and the padding, and the box sizing is crucial. The box sizing border box, it makes padding and borders count inside an element's total width, right? Not added to it. This makes responsive design much more predictable. Now I will style the body with a clean foundation. Okay, now let's select our body, and the font family, I want it to be puppies. Okay, yeah, puppies. I also want let me add some linear gradient background. Okay, so background linear gradient 135 degrees, and then 667 EEA, right? 0%. I suppose you already know all of this because we have covered them all in the transforms backgrounds, right? And if you didn't cover it, you can easily go back to the video, right? It's on the channel, so you can find it there. So 764 BA2. Okay, so some kind of a purple color, and then 100%. Okay, there we go. So I used a gradient background for visual appeal, right? Now let me add mean height too. Mean height of 100 VH, right? I'm going to add a padding of 20 pixels to give us space, right? So far, let's look at how it is. Yeah, so you can see we have this padding, so we have some kind of spacing around them, right? So let's go back. Now let's select the header and start. I just want to do all of this fast because it's not our main concern in this tutorial. We are focusing mainly on grid, right? Okay, notice I gave it a text align center. I centered the text. I also pushed everything below it 40 pixels, right? So everything we pushed our main element 40 pixels down, right? And we also added color white for the headings. Okay, so this one here. So let's select this one, and then I'm gonna give it a font size of 1.1 rem. Actually, let me give it 2.5. I want it to be bigger, and then it should push the paragraph below it by 10 pixels, and then I want font weight of 300. Okay, so I don't want it to be that thick. I don't want it to be heavy like that. Okay, now let's select our p tag, and let's give it a font size of 1.1 rem. Okay, and let's add an opacity of 0.9. Yeah, that's cool. Now this creates a clean centered header, as you can see, that introduce our gallery nicely, right? Now comes the exciting part. So now let's set up our CSS grid first. I need to turn our gallery into a grid container. Okay, so select the gallery. So this gallery here, this one, gallery, select it and display it to grid. Okay, so this single property, the display grid, it turns our gallery into a grid container, right? All direct children automatically become grid items. Next, I need to define our column structure. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to define these columns here. So grid template columns, repeat, and we need the auto fit keyword. I suppose you already know that if you are coming from the latest CSS Grid crash course. And then min max 280 pixels for the minimum size and 1 FR for the maximum size. Okay, yeah. Now the repeat function, as you know, is a CSS function that repeats a pattern, right? Autofit means create as many columns as can fit in the available space, right? It's responsive by nature. And we are the min max as it works, the way it works is that, so here the minimum width of our item should be 280 pixels. And when, so this sort of fit can find a space to fit those items no matter what, but their size cannot decrease less than 280 pixels, right? So it must be 280 pixels and above to 1 FR, right? And one fraction unit can even be whatever safe, whatever the remaining space, right? So this means on wide screens we get more columns, right? On narrow screens fewer columns, all automatically. Now I'll add spacing between grid items. Don't worry because you're not seeing changes in the browser, right? The images are too big, but they are coming in a minute. I'm going to add some spacing here. I'm going to add 20 pixels gap between the items. The grid gap is a shorthand for both row gap and column gap, sorry. It adds consistent spacing between all grid items, right? Now let's add automatic row sizing. So we say git, sorry, not git, grid auto rows. Grid auto rows. We do 10 pixels. Now this is a key property, right? I'm setting each row to be just 10 pixels tall, right? Why so small? Because I'll use span values to make items take multiple rows in this, right? Now this gives me fine control over item heights, right? Finally, I'll constrain and center the gallery. Now let's say I'm going to give it a max width of 1400 pixels, right? I'm also going to give it, let's say, actually let me give it a margin of 0 auto, and then padding of 20 pixels, and then I'm going to give it some background color, so RGBA. Okay, now I'm going to add a border radius of 20 pixels too, and then backdrop filter, blur, right? Backdrop filter blur 10 pixels. Okay, actually I think let me reduce the size of those images, maybe we could see, but I don't want this to be long. Let us just continue. Okay, so this property here, the backdrop filter, it's a new property. Actually, I never show you how it works, right? Like I told you, CSS never ends. You learn and learn, it never ends. So what this property does, it creates a modern glass morphism effect, right? Creates a modern glass morphism effect for the items. Okay, so as this is it here, can you see that in our browser? You can see this little this thing here. Okay, so the max width there prevents the gallery from getting too wide on large screens, right? And margin auto centers them. Okay, now let's style each photo container. Okay, I need to make them look polished and interactive. So let's select gallery item, overflow, hidden, border radius 15 pixels. Okay, now I handled the overflow and the shape, right? So overflow hidden ensures content stays within bounds, especially important for our hover effects, right? And the border radius gives more than rounded corners. Let me add some depth with shadows. Okay, so box shadow, I'm going to give it a 0 h 25 RGBA 0.1. Okay, and this creates a subtle but noticeable shadow that gives our items depth and makes them feel like they are floating above the background, right? Now I'll add smooth transitions for interactions. So transition all. Actually, let me add some value here. I haven't shown you this one too because it's kind of advanced stuff, right? You don't really need to master all of this actually, right? Like I told you, CSS is vast. Okay, so the cubic base here gives us a custom easing function, right? It creates more natural feeling animations than linear transitions. Now let me add an interactive hover state. Okay, so let's say gallery item hover transform translate y, then our old friend -5 pixels, right? And we also want some box shadow around it. So 0, 15, 35, 35 pixels. Let's say 0.25. Okay, now on hover, items lift up and scale slightly, right? The shadow also intensifies, also reinforces the lifting effect, right? This creates engaging micro interactions. Now let's perfect the image display. For the actual images inside our containers, images can be tricky in responsive layouts, so I need to handle them carefully. Now first, I'll make images fill their containers, right? So let's select gallery item and then image, right? So let's give it a width of 100%, width of 100. Oh, sorry, I think you might have noticed the mistake. 100% and also height of 100%. Okay, so this makes the image fill its container completely. Here's the crucial property for maintaining aspect ratios of images, right? So let's add object fit cover for the images, right? Object fit cover, right? So object fit cover is like background size cover, but for image elements, right? It ensures images cover their entire container while maintaining their aspect ratio. No stretching or distortion, right? Now let me ensure clean display for these images, okay? Let's say display block, uh, display block and border radius 15 pixels, okay? So display block here removes any unwanted spacing that can appear below images, right? The border radius matches our container for consistent styling. Finally, I'll add a subtle filter effect, okay? So transition filter, right? 0.3 s, right? 0.3 s is okay. So now when a user hovers our items like this, gallery item, image, hover. So when a user hovers them, you want to add this property, right? Filter and then brightness. You want brightness to be 1.1, right? So this slightly brightens images on hover, right? It creates another layer of interactivity. Now here is where our CSS grid really shines. I'll create a masonry effect by making certain items span multiple rows, right? The grid row property controls how many rows an item spans. Let me start with our first item. Okay. Now let's start. Let's pick our item one. So item one, right? I'm going to give it a grid row and then span 25. Okay. Can you see that? Just look at the effects here. So this is our image, right? This is the subtle effect that this style here, the translate -5. So it lifts the element up a bit, right? It also added some background box shadow behind it, right? I gave it a grid row of 25, right? Now remember that our grid auto rows is 10 pixels, right? So span 25 means this item will be 250 pixels tall, like 25 times 10, right? Now let me make the item shorter for contrast. So the item 2, I'm going to make item 2 shorter, okay? So grid row span 20. Okay, can you see that? Now our gallery is starting to take shape, really. Now our item 3 will be our tallest item, okay? I'm just gonna copy this and paste it below. So change the class name and also give it, so I'm giving it 35, right? Now I'll continue with varied heights. For the item 4, I'm going to give it a grid row of 22, okay? Item 5, I'm going to give it a grid row of, let's say, 30. Let's check what we have for now. Okay, can you see that? If you are familiar with Pinterest, right? You know Pinterest, the design inspiration website. You will know this is how the site looks, right? So the images, they are kind of like this. So this masonry style. Okay, now let's finalize it. So item 6, we want item 6 to span 28 rows. Okay, and then item 7, we want it to span 18 rows. And then item 8, so the last item, you want it to span 26 rows. Okay, okay. So let's check our gallery. Uh, yeah, everything is working, but we made some mistakes, I think. Let's get back to our CSS. So, oh, there it is. I forgot to add the span keyword, right? So span. Yeah, that's it. Okay, now can you see our gallery? It looks cool, right? This is our gallery. Now what I want to add is, right now it's not responsive. It's not responsive at all, but we'll come to that, okay? So for now, this creates a visual rhythm with varied heights, right? The grid automatically flows items into available spaces, creating that Pinterest style like I told you. Now I need to make this work perfectly on all devices, right? I'll use media queries to adjust our layout for different screen sizes. For tablet-sized screens, I'll reduce column width and adjust spacing, right? So let's say at media, max width of 768 pixels. Okay, select, sorry, select our gallery and let's give it a grid template columns. Repeat, auto fit, min max 250 pixels 1FR. Okay, and also we need gap of 15 pixels, not G gap, grid gap 15 pixels. Okay, we also need some padding, some extra spacing. Now smaller min-max value means columns can be narrower, allowing more to fit on tablet screens, right? I'll adjust our header for tablets. Okay, select the H1 element, header H1. Let's target the heading and reduce the font size. Instead of 2.5, we reduce it to 2 rem, right? And for the body, select the body, right? So what am I doing here? Sorry, I've been adding the, I think this is this is not possible in CSS, but in SAS, right? Well, in SAS you can do it, but it's not possible in normal CSS. Okay, so let's do it outside of that one. So for the body, I'm going to give it a padding of 15 pixels. Right. So for mobile phones, I want a single column layout. Okay. So in mobile phones, so let's say that media max width 480 pixels, 480 pixels. Select the gallery. Actually, let us just copy the one above. Okay. So we want it to be, we don't want a repeat, right? We want a single column. So all we need to do is 1FR. Okay. And the gap, let's reduce it to 10, and also the padding. Okay. So 1FR means one fraction of available space, just one column that takes the full width, right? On mobile, I'll also reduce our span value so items aren't too full, right? So actually, let me just copy them here. Okay, paste them, and for the first item, we need our grid row to be 20, right? The second one to be 15. The third one should be 25, and the fourth one should be 18. Excuse me. And the fifth one, we want it to be 22, right? And the sixth one, okay guys, so for item 7, let me reduce it to 14, and for item 8, I'm giving it 21, right? Also, let's select our H1 and reduce it to 1.8 rem. Sorry. Okay, font size of 1.8 rem, and then our body, so our body should be, let me give it a padding of 10 pixels, right? So this is our gallery so far. As you can see, it's really cool, right? As if you touch the images, see they lift up a little bit, right? Now let's add a professional touch, right? Hover overlays that show image titles and description. Now this will make our gallery more interactive and informative. Okay, now first I need to update our HTML to include every overlay content for each image, right? And let me add the overlay structure to each gallery item. Oh, sorry, we even had them actually. Right from the beginning, we even had them. I forgot. So what we need to do now is, let me let me actually let me update my CSS to position these overlays. Okay. So first, I'll I will make the gallery items relative containers. Okay, so let's select the gallery item and position it to relative. Okay, now I'll style our this thing. I'll style the overlay itself. Okay, so this position relative allows us to position child elements absolutely within this container, right? Now let's style overlay itself. I want it to cover the entire image, right? So select, it has a class of image overlay, right? So let's say position absolute top 0, right 0, bottom 0, left 0. Okay, can you see them? Now position absolute with all sides set to 0 makes the overlay cover the entire parent container, right? So full width and height. Now let me add a gradient background that makes the text readable. Okay, so background linear gradient. So I'm going to say actually to bottom. Okay, so to bottom, so transparent, and for the bottom transparent 0%, and for the bottom we need so RGBA 0.8. Okay, and let's add 100%. Okay, now this creates a gradient from transparent at the top dark, right, at the top to dark at the bottom. So this is perfect for text readability while keeping the image visible. Now let me position the text at the bottom and style them. Okay, let's say color white. Can you see that? Padding 20 pixels, display, flex direction, column, right? Justify content, flex n. Okay, now with flex with justify content and pushes our text to the bottom of the overlay, right? Here's the key part. I want the overlay hidden by default, right? So add an opacity of 0 and also transition. So when a user hover over it, I want it to transform smoothly, right? Transition opacity, yeah. Now this opacity 0 makes it invincible, right? And translation creates smooth fade effects. Now I'll make it appear on hover. So gallery item, hover. So when a user hover over the gallery item, we want to select image overlay and give it an opacity of 1, right? So when hovering over the gallery item, the overlay fades in smoothly, right? So can you see that? Now let me style the title text. Okay, so let's select image title. So this one right here. Okay, sorry, this one, image title. So we want it to have a font size of 1.2 rem, font weight of 600, right? And also margin bottom of, we want 8 pixels. You also need line height of 1.3. Okay, so I made the text bold, larger, right? And also I added some good spacing. And for the description text, let's also style it a little bit. So image description, right? So font size 0.9 rem, opacity 0.9, and also line height 1.4. Now I made this smaller, slightly transparent, as you can see. Let's check it on the browser and see. Can you see that? So I made them smaller, slightly transparent text, right? Perfect. Now when users hover over the images, they seem beautiful, right? Now they can see beautiful overlays with contextual information above each photo, right? Okay guys, so I think that's pretty much for our tutorial. So let's go to the browser and preview it. Okay, so this is our photo gallery, right? Can you see that? So when a user hover over it, you can see this nice and smooth transitions showing the info about each image, right? Now let's Okay guys, so this is our photo gallery. This is how it looks on mobile devices. Can you see that? Now it's perfectly responsive, and this is all made using HTML and CSS without any JavaScript or external libraries. And that's really cool if you ask me. And there we have it. So we have built a professional responsive photo gallery using CSS Grid with interactive hover overlays. Now let's review what we covered, right? So we have covered CSS Grid fundamentals, containers, items, and responsive columns. We have also explored the power of auto fit and min-max for responsive design. We also created measuring layout with grid row spans. We added proper image handling with object fit, right? So that it should not lose quality. We also added interactive hover overlays with titles and descriptions. And this is a mobile first responsive design with media queries. Professional touches also. This gallery automatically adapts to any screen size, provides engaging hover animations, and gives users context about each image. And the best part, it's all done with CSS Grid, no JavaScript required. The hover overlays add that professional touch that make users want to explore your content. They work perfectly on desktop while gracefully degrading on mobile devices. So next week, we will tackle our second grid project. So we will build a complete website layout with header, sidebar, main content, and footer areas. You'll see how Grid handles complex multi-area layouts. Keep experimenting with different span values, overlay styles, and layouts. CSS Grid combined with modern CSS effects creates incredibly engaging user experiences. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.